Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Myndful Investor Podcast show. I'm Steve Rosenberg, and I am with my good friend and always companion guest, our host, Alex Osinenko. Alex, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, doing great. It's going to be a great show. Very excited to be with you, Steve, as always. We've been so busy lately doing so many things that I love to just sit down, take an hour and talk real estate with some smart people. And we do have an incredible guest today. I've seen her other podcasts, preparation for the show, and I think I'm becoming a fan myself.
Yeah. So today on our show, we have Jamisa Bennett, and this young lady is just amazing. I saw what she was doing online. I saw some of her shows, and I thought, wow, this is a girl that we need to have on our show because she is definitely blazing a trail. I'd like to hear more about her story. So Jamisa, without further ado, thank you for being on our show today. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys for having me.
So just so our viewers know, where do you live?
I now live in the outskirts of Pennsylvania, but I'm originally from Philadelphia. I lived in Philadelphia my whole entire life.
Okay. So for your whole entire life, let's talk about that. How old are you?
26.
Is that a question you ask a lady?
Well,
I guess this construct, yes.
It's in her bio, and that's, I think, is awesome because this 26-year-old powerhouse owns 19 properties debt-free.
Yes.
Is that right?
It's 20 now, and there's one mortgage. One mortgage. You got a mortgage.
Mortgage. Okay. So this is a great story, Alex. You can learn something from what she's doing, right? Maybe some action, some positive thinking, some focus and intention. But
what I'm gonna do, Steve, sorry to interrupt. I'm gonna talk to my grandma and see if I can get a deed.
You should hurry up and do it. And if it's too late and grandmom's just not with it, you can go to an auction and get somebody else's grandmom's deed. All the same thing. Doesn't even have to be grandmom at this point.
All right. So Jamisa, I'd love to hear your story. If you could just tell our viewers and listeners so that they can understand how does this even happen? Maybe just take us back to kind of your childhood and what got you into real estate. And what got you to just explode into real estate, really?
Okay. It was by accident. I say that all the time when people, they're like, no way. No, but it was literally an accident. It just came from integrity. So I've always possessed very strong leadership skills. I've always been innovative. I mean, even since this big. So what happened was one day I was 19 and my grandmom asked me if something was to happen to her, what would happen to her property. Now she has owned that house for, I want to say maybe 20 years before I was born, so pretty much my whole life and a little bit before then. This is my dad's mom. So when she posed the question, I actually didn't have an answer. I'm a 19-year-old kid, not worrying about what's going to happen to her or when, or not understanding the dynamics of the question. So when she said, what happens to my house? I'm like, nothing, it kind of just sits here, grandma. That's the typical 19-year-old answer at the time. So she gave me a set of rules. She said, no, look, I really want you to take care of the house, look over it. You are the most responsible one in the family. So just a little bit of family background. If I'm 19 and at that time she deemed me most responsible, you can imagine, the type of people I'm related to. And I was like, okay, cool, no problem. So the rules were, if anyone needed somewhere to live, that would be the house. I was supposed to be a landlord. They would pay me rent. She didn't want anybody to fight over it. And it was one more. I couldn't really remember. Very vague instructions. I was like, okay, cool. So what do? She had no answer. So I had to figure out what that would even look like in terms of the ownership piece of it. So I asked a few questions. I Googled a few things, and I came up with what was called a dollar deed transfer. So I got this from a guy who owned tons of real estate, and he mentioned something about transfer tax and a way to alleviate it. Well, at this time, I'm a cashier, so if I can avoid any tax and money that I don't have, that was the route that I was going to take. So it was like a trial and error type of thing. We end up signing a piece of paper. We had to pay title insurance. So I think that was like $300 out of my $500 cashier's check. And we had it submitted to a title company. A random hole in the wall. I searched title company near me, right? Yeah. That's what we.
The millennials, that's millennials.
Yeah, Google, right?
I didn't know. First of all, I didn't know what a title company was, but just given the specific instructions, I was like, okay, we need to sign this and give it to a title company. Let's find a title company. Really no brainer stuff, to be honest. It didn't take much of a plan. It just was some following of the instruction. So I did it. All in all, I want to say maybe $500, $600. I got the title insurance. We got the deed recorded. I didn't have to pay any taxes because she's my grandma immediately. And that was that. And that was okay for a while because she lived there in the property still. So I was like, okay. So I had a house, but I didn't really have a house. It was still hers. And this is what I'm used to because she lived there my whole life. And a year after that, when I was 20, she died. And that's when it kind of became like a reality to me, like an actual responsibility. Because once we signed the paper, I didn't do anything to it. Like, she still paid the utility. She had her own little, whatever she did with her taxes and everything. So I didn't really have to do anything except be a co-owner on a piece of paper. When she died, it became different. It became a reality check. Like, okay, wait, there's a real house and there's real bills associated with the real house. And you have a real family. And you are the most rational one because now they're like all coming at me. So what I had to do was like literally just think fast. And in the beginning, I was very timid about it, being the youngest, just being completely uneducated about the whole process and just trying to follow some of the rules that she had given me. So she wanted that to be the family house. Well, I knew that the condition of the house wasn't ideal for me because in the beginning, I wanted to actually move into it. And then I seen like the paneling and the drop ceiling and the plastic on the couches. And I was like, oh, this is ugly. I actually have to fix this. And then I realized a few things very quickly. I needed money and I needed resources. And that was two of the things that I did not have much of at the time. So I tried to pull the family together, like, hey guys, let's come together, fix it up. That was horrible. It just didn't work out. Almost instantly. And when I say instantly, she died. And a week later, everybody was homeless. Like everybody, right? Everybody needed a place to live.
Yeah.
It was like sick. And they wanted to pay me rent. They wanted to pay me $300, which was beautiful, right? Considering the fact that the taxes are like 4 times that, what do I do with $300? It just ended up not being a good situation in the very beginning for me. So I decided to sell it. I had the neighbor that was next door, and he was like really adamant about making sure I was okay. Because I'm the only one that I think he ever really saw in the family. Because I would always come by, give her the groceries, I'm picking her up, I'm dropping her off, something like that. So we were familiar with each other at the time. And he had a really nice house. 3-story, rooftop deck, a really cool guy. And I think the chaos that was happening next door to his home was disturbing. And in his defense, if I paid $300 and something thousand for a house, I probably wouldn't want to hear that either. Now that I'm in my own house, I understand the peace of mind that comes with when you make a really large purchase like that. So he introduced me to his realtor who helped him purchase the house.
Okay.
And his realtor said, hey, listen, we're going to list it. We're going to put this on the market. I think he said 115, if I'm not mistaken. I believe we listed it at 115. And after a week, literally a solid 7 days, we were at a bidding war. Wow. Now, in my mind, I was not understanding, first of all, why are we listing it at 115? Well, the contractors and the trash hauler said I wouldn't get any more than 60 for it. And I'm telling you, those guys were aggressive. They was like, walk me to the truck right now. We can sign a check right now. And I was like, no, I don't want a personal check because at the cashier's place, we don't take that. We don't take personal checks. So I knew that much, right?
Right.
But when he said 115, that was a much larger number than what I was actually expecting it to be worth. Because at this time, again, I don't know values. I'm not really understanding the dynamics of watching the community change, and I don't know comps. I don't know any of those things.
Now, let me ask you this real quick. When you sold it, was there some kind of agreement that you would have to split this with any of the other family members, or this is your money that you do?
This is just all mine. Nope, it was just my house. It was just all mine.
Okay.
So what ended up happening was I listed it at the 115, as he said. I know I walked away with 152.
Wow.
After taxes, I walked away with 152,000.
Wow. Nice. Very cool.
I was 21. It was great. I was like, yes.
And then so most people at this point would be like, I'm rich. Let's get into Lexus. Let's get in a nice apartment. I quit my job. and I go on, on vacation. Did you do all those things?
No, I didn't.
Ah.
I didn't do any of those things. I was afraid to do all of those things. So when you come from a place of poverty, it's something to be accredited to people who have like humble beginnings, right? You get this survival instinct. Some people, not all people, I can really just speak for myself at this point. You know what being broke feels like. You get it.
Oh, yeah.
So when you get a chance at a second, like why would you, okay, buy a Lexus and then what? Run out of money. Like I've always had that inclination, like what didn't make sense to me. I was always that person. So again, when she said most responsible, I didn't actually realize how responsible I was or how the things that I was doing was demonstrating me being responsible. I remember at 18 or 19, I bust my ass to get this BMW. I had to get $5,000 as a down payment from a buy here, pay here, mind you. Interest rates probably 100%. Right. It was sick. But I remember putting everything that I had down on this BMW, and ultimately I lost it because I got it from like a jinky dealer that didn't have a title. It just was a bad thing. Oh. It was just really, really bad. And that was my last $5,000. But I made financial mistakes before. So now once I got the money, I was like, nah, I'm kind of scoring by the whole BMW thing. Let's just try something different. So my immediate thought was, okay, replace your income. So yes, I quit. Yes. I was like, okay.
So you did one of those three things. That's good. Okay.
Yeah, I did one of the three things. Yes, let's quit. But let's replace the income. I've always been one to want stability, like all the time. Just things that just made sense to me. So, okay, one house got me this much money. Let's go find places to buy more houses. And then I realized the pressure that was coming from like everywhere. All of my family wanted money once they realized that the property was sold. Yeah. I had an uncle who wanted to buy a truck, but he didn't have a driver's license. My dad wanted $40,000. My aunt, she didn't really put a dollar amount on what she wanted. Everybody just needed something at the time. And then I had the real estate agent who was like scared to death for me. I'm gonna be honest. He sat me down with a financial advisor, like, listen, she has a lot of money. We have to help her. And I'm like, I need help. Like, I didn't even know I needed help. And the guy was like, listen, we should do a, what did he call it? A Roth IRA. And I remember him like, you sit the money here until you're 50 something. And then you just come back later and you get it. I'm like, well, what if I need it in the meantime? He was like, well, it'll be a small fee if you ever need to borrow ahead of time, but you can put it in a college fund. He just was giving me all of these, great ideas that just didn't really sit well with me. Like I already went to college, so I kind of got an idea that the first few years I would be doing wasted Wednesdays and thirsty Thursdays and, gen eds the whole time, finding myself before actually getting a hone on a career. Only I might decide that I don't even want to do that anymore. So no, I'm not really interested in college funds and stuff like that. So I said, listen, I'm going to take this money. I respectfully declined. I'm just going to go buy more houses. And that was really the beginning of my journey. I just like if one house got me that much money, I need to buy more. So then the real estate agent was like, okay, I have another guy for you to meet. I'm like, oh my God, not somebody else to sit at a table with that wants this money. But this guy was an investor. He was really, really cool. But all about 7 minutes into the conversation when he realized, because his first question was, how old was I? And I think that that's something I have to get used to, because no, you're not supposed to ask women how old they are, but you gotta actually look like a woman first, right? So as a teenager, I'm scrolling up to this table and I'm like, yeah, I want to buy houses right now. I'm a cash buyer. I'm not even knowing what that means as I'm saying it, but I'm like, yeah, this is what he said I was. I'm a cash buyer. He's like, if you don't mind me asking, where'd you get this money? So I'm like explaining the situation. And he was like, you sold it? Like you actually sold the property in Point Breeze? I was like, yeah. For $152? You could have sold it for $350.
Oh, well, renovated, right? Renovated, right?
Renovated. He didn't give me all of the dynamics of what should have happened. But yeah, you should have sold it for $350. That's what he said. So I was like, well, where's the rest of the money? Well, what did I get wrong? So he goes into a whole other world of like hard money lending and just the equity in the property. Well, how much equity was in it? So I'm like, what? He's like, how much equity? That's the value of the property. What was this? Well, what was her mortgage? I'm like, oh no, there was no mortgage. So he's like banging his head on the table at this point. And I'm like, well, did I do something wrong? And I feel like at that point, that's when I realized instantly how much I didn't know about real estate. Like how much I didn't know. Like I felt like I did a really good thing by selling it now. And I beat myself up about it a few days after our meeting. I was like, oh man, I did something.
So we arrive at a point where some of our listeners right now on the edge of their chairs. Okay, so you now have a little bit of a cash to go out and, invest. So once you met with that investor and you realize like, hey, you made a mistake, now you have the money. Real estate seems to be the place to start investing and growing your wealth, but you know nothing. What's the first step, Jamisa?
So he actually had properties. Because I made it a point to mention that I wanted to buy properties. So just being really intentional about knowing what I wanted. I knew that I needed to replace my income because at this point I hadn't purchased anything. So I hadn't spent any of the money. So he had maybe 5 houses. I only purchased 2 of them. One of them I got for $6,500 from him. He had purchased it for $2,500 though, which was like, okay. So that was like my first aha moment. So I got that one property from him for $6,500. It was horrible. I call it the tree house to this day. Because when I first got it, it was like a tree inside of it, like stationed in a bed. It was really bad. So I called it the tree house. But then he also had another property that had a tenant there. She was already paying $1,000 a month. He had a mortgage on it that was like $300. So what he did, it ended up being like
$300 a month, Jamisa, right?
$300 a month, yes.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
It ended up being like a subject to deal. Well, what I know now as subject to, but at the time I didn't know. The tenant stayed in place. The mortgage stayed in place. I just inherited everything. So that was like, now this is what we would call a subject to. At that time, I had no idea. It just was like, okay, if I do it that way, I end up coming out of pocket less money at the time. Because at this point, I'm just spending cash. So that was that. When I realized, when we got into the paperwork with the $6,500 property, though, I found out he purchased it for $25 from an auction. Because obviously you're curious. Well, $65 is not a lot of money considering, but how'd you get it for the $25? And he had mentioned auction to me. So that was like, okay, mental note, you should visit an auction. Right? I didn't really pry too much into what he did and how he did it, but I made a mental note there. Okay, $2,500 properties at an auction place. Let's go to that auction place. So that was there. So they were my first 2 properties. Then I end up going
and the second one, Jimmy, I'm sorry. The second one was how much? So you assume the $300 a month mortgage and a tenant with $1,000 rent, but how much was the purchase price?
And all of it together, so I ended up giving him $24,000, but he had a 30. Altogether, it would have been like $52,000. So I assumed about 30 something in debt at that time.
Okay.
Was that would you do this deal again? Like now, knowing what you know now?
Yep, I did it again. I did it a little better, but I've done it again.
Let me ask you, Jamisa,
I've done it recently.
Did you, with the tree house, did you put a tenant in there? Did you have to take the tree out, or did you flip?
No. So that property ended up sitting for 2 years before I even touched it. Yeah, because at that point, it was really frightening. Just seeing something in that type of condition, I was like,
yeah.
So that was kind of like a piggy bank. It was like you put your money to the side. Well, you get a vacant property permit. That's what the city requires. It was already like winterized, so to speak, because it had a new roof on it, which was good. And it was already boarded up. So I was like, okay, it's not bothering me. I won't bother it, pretty much. I made my mind up that I wasn't ready to do a full rehab, even though that was his advice going in. He said, hey, you can purchase this. You can do a full rehab to it, and then you can pull the equity out. So at that point, he was pitching the Burr method to me.
Yeah.
But again, I was kind of not comfortable with just exploring different avenues at that time. And I didn't have any credit. So this is the thing. A lot of the things he mentioned as an investor, I'm novice. So he's telling me about hard money loans and equity and stuff like that. I didn't realize what was needed and what wasn't needed. But I know that you needed credit. I didn't have any credit. So that's not something.
Let me ask you this, Jamisa. So, and I think this is important for our listeners to take away from this is, when you were doing this, you did not have a strategy, right? You were just taking action.
Yes.
So my question is, because a lot of people that I talk to, they want to build out a strategy first, which you should, right? I think that's very, very important.
Right.
But in your opinion, do you think action beats strategy in certain instances?
Yeah, I think it trumps strategy all the time, because you have to keep in mind, if you're building from the ground level, the best thing to do is to build from the ground level. Sometimes people get really vested in creating a strategy and they start to discount the process, right?
Right.
Or they'll take away from the actionable steps because they're like, okay, I'm going to do this, that, and the third first. That's a whole climb. That's the upward. So just imagine if I held on to grandma's house And my strategy was fix my credit, hard money loan, you know, get the deposit, which I think would have been like 10% down on a hard money. You have to have some type of skin in the game. If I would have went that route, in the interim, life is still happening. So then do I lose her house to taxes in the meantime? Because I don't have any money. You get what I'm saying? So sometimes the best thing to do is to start exactly where you are, but that all depends on the type of person that you are too. Everybody's not starting from the same place. But I do feel like the best thing to do is to start. Like if I had to do it again, I would probably do it the same way.
And so from your bio and seeing what you're doing, you coach people and you help people.
Yes.
Is that kind of what you know, I'm sure you have a plan now that you help them with, but is the mode to basically get people to take action and not let fear stop them or what? Because I'm sure you get many people, especially if you're dealing with young people, they've got every reason in the world why they can't or shouldn't do something.
Yeah.
Kind of the example that says you can, right? And you didn't have a plan. You just started taking action and it's working out for you.
I want to say 50-50. The majority of my clients are actually not young. They're a little bit older, meaning they're complacent too. So when you lived your life a certain way for a very long time, it's kind of hard to see anything outside of that. So now it's not just about taking blind action. It's about kind of coinciding the two, taking actionable steps from where you are. So definitely creating a strategy, but just getting people to realize that there is a strategy that exists from where you are. Some people don't think, they think like right now I'm at the very bottom. I have nothing. There's nothing I can do. There's always something that you can do. So it's kind of like both of them together.
So how would you, Steve, sorry, this is interesting. So how would you recommend someone get started if they really don't have that initial pool of cash they can deploy like right away? Like what would be that your choices now? How would you recommend somebody to do this?
Yeah, I'm very upfront and honest. You either need money or you need an immense amount of time. You will never get something for nothing. So if you're somebody who has no money, like I'm broke, I have no credit, you have to wholesale. Real estate's not really complex. It's very strategic when you think about it. You have houses, doors, numbers, right? But you have to have one of the two. Or resources, which ends up being time because you have to spend time making resources. I say wholesale. I say go to auctions. There are auctions where you do not need a pool of money at all. Literally, so there's a Philadelphia auction in which the minimum deposit on a property is $600, right? Or 10%. It ends up being whichever is highest. So when I got that $1,700 property, I put down $600. You then have 30 days to come up with the remaining balance. So in my case, it was $1,700. I put down $600. I would have had 30 days to come up with $1,100 additional dollars. Obviously, due to the circumstances, I had the $1,100, but I also still had 30 days to sell that property, right? So that's it's kind of like wholesaling. I feel like it's less invasive. You don't have to knock on the door like, hi, are you selling? The inventory is there because they're auctioning it off. But I just feel like $600 is something that everybody, you know, even if you're like at your lowest, you can save $600. Or you can find people who have money and get at least $600. $1,000, that's still 10%. That gives you buying power up to $10,000. So at that point, you at least now are creating an opportunity for yourself. But I do feel like it's one or the other. It's always time or money. So when I say, do you want to invest in real estate with no money? I'm like, what you about to tell these people to do? Like, I never tell them that. Like, I'm always really honest about what it's going to take. At the time, I had money and time. So I was really, really lucky. And I spent a lot of my time learning how to use my money.
Yeah, I am Steve, just sorry. I have to like, I try to understand this because I'm in San Francisco Bay Area. Like $6,000 is a monthly mortgage, Jamisa. It's not like a house price. So I'm just like, I'm sitting here fascinated. Like, all right, well, so you get a house for $6,000. Like, all right, let's talk through it a little bit. Like, it's probably not in an A type of neighborhood, right? We would assume like C neighborhood. What would it cost to renovate and then rent it out? Like, what would rents be there for that particular type of property?
Yeah, it would depend on a few things if you actually wanted to fix it and run it. I actually have people from California who come to Philadelphia for our numbers.
Yeah, because we don't buy here. It's crazy.
Like what you pay for the flight in a hotel is actually more than what you might pay on a house. It's so funny.
That's ridiculous.
So you get a really high return on properties that are in the urban areas. I'm just going to be honest. I think people who are in a lower financial caliber don't realize how much money they actually do have. It takes so much money to be broke. It actually costs more to be broke than it does to have money. So if you are fixing a house, and that's an if, because the strategy that I just mentioned did not require me fixing a house. I sold it as is. So I'm purchasing it for one amount, selling it for more than I purchased it for profit prior to renovating. I'm not renovating it. I'm just keeping my numbers cost effective for the end buyer. So the person who gets it after me, from me, will fix it up. And obviously you do like the 70% of the after repair value type of thing. But if you get a property at $6,000, you can assume you are way below the market value of that property. Now, if you're fixing it up, for example, treehouse, even with the tree in it, I got 3 or 4 quotes from contractors. The highest came in at $56,000, and that included removal of the tree, $56,000. Yep, that was the highest. The ones that fell under that was still in the 50s. One was like $54,000. I'm going to say between 54 and 56. That's what all of the quotes came in at. So I'm going to say, safe to say, I'll max out and say 56, right? During the time of me just holding it, it appreciated. So the property up the street sold for $125,000, and it was actually smaller than mine's. So mine's is zoned as a duplex. Well, I could have made it a duplex. It's zoned as a multifamily. So that's whether I made a duplex or a triplex. That's optional for me. But the house up the street was not zoned as a multi-unit, and it was 2 bedrooms. And that sold for $125,000. Now, if you're speaking in terms of comps, obviously mine's is bigger. It's going to be worth more. So if you just think about it in that term, it's like double the equity, pretty much, even if I went in all cash, which would make sense. I just feel like borrowing that it's not enough to borrow for me.
Right. So, okay. So just so that we can walk through the numbers, let's say you're at a $6,500 house, you're at 56 in repairs. So you're going to be at roughly 62,000, and you're saying the ARV is going to be about 120, right? After repair value of the property. Yeah. So you're in about a 50% equity position in the property. Okay. Yeah. So what would just so people understand with taxes and insurance in your area, what would be the, if you got a loan on it, let's say you got a loan, and now you maybe you got a hard money loan. You just like Daryl, like our buddy Daryl, Alex, you get a hard money loan, you do the repairs, you do a refi on it, you pull your money back out. So now you're nothing into the property. You're into it. It's worth 120. You're into it for 60. So you're still good on that. You could even take more out if you want. What does it rent for?
So at that point in the area, if I'm doing multi-unit, because now you ask, it's 2 different questions, but I can do each floor like $875 each. Okay. If I'm doing the whole thing, I'm between $1,200 and $1,500 a month. Like if I just wanted to rent the house as a whole house,
right? $1,200
to $1,500 a month.
Easily. Now, in that scenario, the duplex, is it single? Are these normally single meter where you have to do all bills paid, or are these split out the meter, split out the plumbing?
You can do separately meter. So if you're doing something that's zoned, you want to do separate. You want to do separate meters for each unit, of course. But then in the situation, so we have row homes. I mean, Philadelphia is like filled with row homes. Some of them are single families, but we have row homes. So in situations like that, also water bill too. Water bill is a utility to some people, but it's a tax. Really, when you think about it, the water bill does not follow the tenant. It stays with the house. So somebody like me, I'm going to say water is included, and then I'll charge you per usage. Okay. You get what I'm saying? Just because it just makes sense. Your water bill is not going to exceed a certain number anyway. Like most water bills are between like $40, $50 a month. Right. So I would do that. The electric bill, obviously the tenant pays that because the electric goes directly into their name. So that's something that would be on top of the actual rent. So that's not inclusive. And then everything else, you pay, like you said, the insurance. And it just depends on if you are in the very beginning, because you get good deals when you do homeowners insurance in bulk. Like you can imagine once you get a certain amount of properties. Yeah, you just, like, hey, listen, I have 10 properties, insure them all. Obviously, you'll get a better rate. So, and then the taxes on this specific property that I'm talking about is $150 a year.
A year?
A year. Yeah, a year. This is a lot of the highest I've paid on property taxes is in South Philly. And right now is $862 a year, I believe, for this specific property. Wow. But our property taxes are not really high at all.
No. Alex, what are your property taxes in San Francisco?
It's more than $862 a month, I promise you.
Is it double or is it triple? Look, I have a friend who lives in California. It's a little scary. Yeah. Even where I live now, though, and I only live about 2 hours outside of Philadelphia, our taxes are like, what is it, $16,000 a year?
But the house is huge. I live in like a gated community, little stuff like that. But I'm like, wow, like in the hood and properties I own that are like smaller. Like the house that I'm in now is probably equivalent to the size of 4 row homes. Like literally, I have more equity in those row homes than I do in apartment residence. It's crazy.
So Jamisa, here's a question.
Yeah.
Like, let's say like a California investor or any kind of, any investor, Philadelphia investor, doesn't matter. With some money, listening to this podcast, like, man, this is a gold mine. I got to get in touch with Jamisa. We got to get this going. What are some of the pitfalls? What's some of the mistakes? What's some of the risks? Some of the like things where people could trip up doing the strategy?
So as a beginner, I think the biggest mistake that I see is people just being greedy, really not taking their time. Just don't be greedy. Start with one at a time so that you can kind of master that process. Another one is people becoming really analytical about it. Overthink. Just get one house and kind of figure it out. No 2 deals are the same. I don't care if they're on the same block, side by side to each other. No 2 deals are going to be exactly the same. So you'll get a person who tries to master a specific situation instead of just working through it as they go along. Number wise, I see people do repairs that just are not accommodating to what they're trying to accomplish. If you're renting a property, you should do rehab that's efficient to a rental, right? No marble floors, especially not heated. Please don't put elevators inside of it. Like just going over the top with materials and rehab. You cannot put the same materials in a rehab that you would put into a flip. Obviously, you're doing 2 different things there. So I see people do that as well. Get into attached, I call it. Like, you're not going to live here. Why are you doing this? Like, they're like, no, but I want it to be this way. No.
So don't get emotionally attached to like the architecture and the way it looks. Like, hey, do remodel.
Yes, you spend so much more money. You don't have to do that. Also with the quick flips too. I've seen this so many times. You go in, you put the $600 down. You got 30 days to either come up with the rest or sell it. Some people have never owned anything in their life. When you actually win, you get this receipt that gives you like temporary ownership. And they're like, no, it's really mine. I'll just come up with the rest of the money in that 30 days. No, you're going to forfeit. I mean, I can't count them out. Like, I can't outright say you're not going to come up with the rest of the money. But in my mind, just sell the first one for profit and reinvest. But they get attached again. They're like, I have to keep it. You can't afford to keep it. Just, sell it and start fresh. That's the thing. And that is not hypocritical at all. I sold my grandma's house. And I could have held on to it. This is my grandma's. This is all we had. And that's probably all we would have had ever. But I was able to sell it, not be emotionally attached, and kind of, just move on from that. And then also, taking a road less traveled. I think a lot of things pertaining to success is cliche. I'm going to be honest with you. You hear it all the time. And you're like,
tell me more. I'm interested. Tell me more. What does that mean? Like,
okay, taking a road less traveled. People's like, yeah, do the right thing, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm serious. When you are making really, really important decisions, you cannot expect everybody's support. Do not try to sell houses to your family. If they were interested in purchasing property, they would be doing it way before you started selling it, right? But then you get discouraged because I'm trying to sell a house to my aunt and she doesn't want to buy from me, so I'm sad. These were the people who didn't support you your whole life. Move on, meet strangers. Somebody will support what you're doing. And eventually your aunt will double back when she sees how great everything is going. I think people are not willing to take the journey alone. They just need a bunch of approval and pats on their back and like head nods. I'm going to be honest, it doesn't come with that. Not in the beginning anyway. And even when it does, like towards the middle and the end, it's not really always genuine. So you still have to be really mindful of that. But that thing. Also, like manifesting stuff. That's pretty cliche. People's like, you can do anything you want to do. Think it and it shall be. People think that's fake. No, that's a real thing. Even as a cashier, I knew that I was like destined to be something different. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you like, I knew I would be this. Real estate was in the cards. I didn't know. I don't think anybody outright knows what they're going to do and how it's going to play out. But if you stay true to who you are, like not settling. Okay, I'm telling you, when I went to work as a cashier, in my mind, I would say somebody's going to get in my line and they're going to like fall in love with my personality and take me to their company. In my mind, I was going to get saved in some shape or form. But that was just me knowing that there was more out there, more to be had. And I didn't know exactly how it was going to pan out, but I was expecting more. So inevitably, I got more. That's the real thing. It's not like a meditation. I'm going to picture $1 million and it's going to fall in my lap. We can't really expect that to happen. But as long as we're expecting something, we're more aware when looking for it.
Yeah.
Right?
Profound. So, hey, that's really interesting. Like, what is, like, you are, so I watched the last podcast. Well, the podcast episode I watched, what was the show called? It was Better Than Success. And that was,
Hi, Nicole.
yeah, so that was January 2018. You had 9 properties. So we're sitting here January 2020. That's 2 years. You have 20 properties.
20.
What's next? Like, okay, so you've achieved a level of success. Obviously, I mean, I don't know, obviously, but are you sort of covering right now? You're living comfortably. Like, do you have enough money to live, but also continue to invest?
Yep, I can do both. And I have knowledge. That's the thing. Sometimes the best currency is resources. I'm telling you, you are as rich as your friends. I'm gonna be honest. So yeah.
Hey, Steve.
Yeah, there you go.
Hey, Steve. No, seriously though, because it's not what you know, it's who you know. Another cliche thing. And it's not always somebody that will pass you a check, right? But they might give you a resource, or they might give you an opportunity to then make more money. So right now, I cannot do anything for the rest of my life. No, not the rest of my life, but just for a few years. I wouldn't do that though. I think that sucks. It's pretty boring.
Yeah.
But I can definitely reinvest, and now I can reinvest in more things. So now my interest is in multi-units solely, because you're able to maximize earning potential while minimizing liability. So like when I do these interviews, it sounds great. 26. Oh my gosh, 20 properties. Listen, that's 20 different things that can go wrong in 20 different places. Okay. Yes. That's insane. But if you can condense it, I mean, it's still, some liability attached, but just not as much. And just changing the world one place at a time. I literally have clients in Texas, New Orleans, Detroit, just random places, just the places that you would never think of. And it's like, wow, my word is really getting there. But I really want to just touch people who have these opportunities that they can't really realize are opportunities because it doesn't say opportunity on it with the stamp. Most people are looking for that, and that's not a thing. But if you have a grandmom, maybe you can get above the 8 ball, right? Maybe you can start working on your credit before she dies and leaves you the property. So now maybe you can do the hard money loan and pull the equity out. Or just different things, just taking exactly what I did and just doing it better. If I can teach somebody the mistakes that I made just so that they can maximize an opportunity or create one for themselves, then I feel like my job is really done.
So let me ask you this, Jamisa. I got a question. You've got 20 properties, and
Yeah.
I know from owning a lot of single family, like you said, it can be a time drain, a time suck.
Yeah.
And you have a child and you're married. So how much?
Not one child, 3.
3. Oh, wow. Okay. You need to update your bio, by the way. So how do you balance the work life? And for the listeners, how many hours would you say you spend a week on your real estate? Just them rentals, not the coaching, just the rentals. If I were to own 20 single family homes, how much time would it take for me to handle those? And then how do you balance the work life, family, business?
Well, right now, I'll be honest, less than 2 hours a week, if at all. So how you go in is usually how you come out. Don't put a tenant in a place that's going to require them to call you 50,000 times. Just don't do it.
Amen to that, I tell you what.
Some people are rushing and they're like, oh, I can make some money. The thing is, if it was leaking and squeaking when you put them there, it was leaking and squeaking the whole time, they're going to call. So I make sure that if I'm putting you in a place, it's very rare that something will go wrong. And if it does, my lease is literally like 13 pages. Every other page pretty much says, do not call. Like every other page is like, take this out the rent, show me the receipt. Fix this. This is how you do it. Stuff like that. This is the maintenance guy if something is to happen. If something big happens, obviously you get the call and then you have to solve it, and you figure it out. But in the very beginning, there's not much that you're going to, do it right. And then
I completely agree. I've learned my lessons over and over, and it all starts and ends by putting the right or wrong resident in your property. And that's
correct. Yeah. But you get that early on too. I think some people are just following, like, check their credit score and check their house. And I heard something like, look at their car. And I'm like, who told you? First of all, you have to get a feel for the person. I mean, I think credit is really good. But then again, you could be spending all your money paying your credit card bills and not have any money to actually pay your rent. So I can't solely go based off your credit score. To some people, it shows responsibility. To other people, your credit score you could be an authorized user on somebody's credit card. How do I know that this is your credit? It becomes really a thing. So I feel like you pick the right person by like learning about that person Obviously, if you say, hey, I'm going to do a walkthrough of your house, they're going to clean up. You know, just little stuff like that. But like finding the right person, actually having a very transparent conversation with them, knowing that we all are human. I'm not going to expect a perfect angel tenant, but just knowing, look, this is what I expect. These are my rules. This is how I go about stuff. And then making that mutual agreement. If you can do this, then you can live here. You'll be okay. But it's not really much of a balance. I'm going to be honest, for the parents or the moms who are listening. I don't know about balance. I'm going to be honest. I do both. Okay, it's time that I take my kid to the property. Like that's just what it boils down to. It's not like mommy time and then work time. You see, I was just running rapid trying to find a charger because I had an interview prior to that, but right before that, it was lunchtime. I had to feed the kids. That was the thing. Right. We kind of are bouncing back and forth. So to those people, don't try to find a perfect balance or you will be stuck wherever you are forever. Okay, take the kid with you. They need to learn something anyway. You don't want to end up in an old folks home.
Yeah,
seriously. Teach them what it is that they need to know so that when it's time for them to handle business, they can do it. You know, I think it's so many things we leave kids out of or, you know, that was the problem with my grandma. And I don't think that it was much more that she knew that she could have taught me, but I don't feel like that was an excuse. She said she should have learned something to teach my dad so that my dad could teach me. Maybe I would have known about credit. So I just feel like try to make it inclusive. Take some of that pressure off yourself, feeling like everything has to be perfect. It'll never be perfect.
Yeah. Well, Jamisa, I wish we had more time to pick your brain. I'd love to hear how you're doing in the future because it's exciting. Congratulations on what you're doing.
Thank you.
Let me ask you this, just as a final wrap, if you had to nail it down to one sentence that you would give people advice, what would that be to people listening that you would like to pass on that maybe you wish you knew?
Everything that you need to take you to the next level is already inside of you. You possess it. And even if it could be the very thing that you're overlooking or the very thing you're not paying attention to. Maybe you're really good with words or maybe you're really good at facilitating or it's always something, but there's always somebody that needs that specific thing that you have. It's like we're all puzzle pieces out here in the world and all we have to do is match our piece with a piece that's missing what we have.
Awesome. That said it good, huh?
That's well said. Well said, Jamisa. Well, we're going to follow your journey and hopefully have you on the podcast maybe in a year or 6 months, or when you do something significant, just give us an email or call. It's really been great getting to know you. I love part of this passion for the podcast is to deliver, the education out there, but also meet people like you. It's been a pleasure and very educational for me. I'm, just beginning my journey.
Are you going to fly in? I'm expecting you, Alex. I'm expecting you to come on over.
I can't fly and then waste the same amount of money that would cost me the house. So I have to walk or something.
This is the thing. However you got to get here. If you start walking now, you'll make it by the next
a journey starts with one step, Alex.
A small step forward is still a step forward.
Yeah,
and then
that's
flip
right.
the house and then, reinvest the money to get you back home.
There you go.
Well, Jamisa, we'll be in touch. How's that?
That's perfect.
Yeah, and it's just been very exciting. I mean, you're an inspiration, and I think this has been a great episode. And as I said, it's an honor to meet you. And all the best to you. Stay focused.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah,
it was
stay
a pleasure
brave.
speaking to the
Thank
both of
you.
you guys.
And if for those of you that want to join our Facebook group, you can go to the Mastermind Real Estate Investment Club. So the Mastermind Real Estate Investment Club, tons of investors on there, people from Bigger Pockets, from Mynd, all the people. Just talking, engaging, having conversations. It's great. And also you can go to our website, mynd.co, if you'd like to talk about property management services or just find out some of our educational topics. We've got a lot of videos, a lot of education. Our main focus is being the thought leader in education. And that's how we do it. And luckily Mynd is giving us the ability to have these shows, reach out to people like Jamisa and other people and have them on and just kind of get the word out there that, it doesn't matter where you are, what your price point is, what your financial situation is you can do it. It's just, it's up to you. And you make that decision every day when you wake up, what you're going to do with your time. So again, from Alex, myself and Jamisa, thanks for watching. Go to iTunes, subscribe, like, share, do all that stuff. Make sure you find Jamisa. We'll have all of her information in the links down below. So you can get a hold of her, talk to her, what she's doing. And everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.